Alright, hello everyone. Fungustober here. I wasn't really planning to make a video so soon, just because, I want to try to get more of, a better schedule with this and an actual schedule, but, um, I have a lot of things I'm doing, and this one probably will not be relevant in a few weeks, so I'm going to try to do it as just quickly as possible. So you might have seen this video, which is if you're in the space that is. So you might have seen this video, which is or this tweet specifically, which is the caption here is, "Wow, this is apparently what was supposed to be a static fire test today of a Tianlong-3 first stage by China's space pioneer. That's catastrophic, not static. Firm was targeting an orbital launch in the coming months." All right, so let's see that video.
一切的体力呀，真高的，
歪了，卡子了，卡子了，卡子了，卡子了。
燃烧了，
烧着下来了。咦，考验这它落到哪呢？
你往上一看，
一落轱辘里，这走真不让。
玻璃都来了。
这俩玻璃啪都对了。
All right, so that's a pretty interesting video. You might have noticed some things already in there that seem very interesting, and I did too. So let's go over some of them. First is that doesn't go that far. That can't possibly be a first stage, can it? Because if your first stage only carries you this far, then your second and third stage have to be doing a lot of work. But if I just go over here, you can see that no, that is the first stage, an assembled Tianlong-3 first stage from credit Space Pioneer. As we can see, this is the first stage. That is 9 engines. Yes, 449. 489, not 449, sorry. And as we can see, this is a pretty good match for what we saw in the video here. That is a long white tube with what is a little... I don't think we can... Okay, this is probably one of the best views we get of it. No, here. Here is probably the clearest view we get of it. We can see sort of that that black bit up at the top stage there. And we cannot really see that little flare at the bottom there, but it looks like it is pretty close to the bottom of the rocket. So we probably wouldn't be able to see it anyway, and it's obviously enveloped in flame, but that seems like a dead ringer for the first stage. So now, let's examine this frame by frame to see what we can glean from it, because I already have sort of an idea what's going on here, but yeah, probably better to look at it in frame by frame to see what is going on. All right, and now that I actually have my microphone on, let's talk about this video. So here we have a lot of obviously we can't see much in the beginning here because it's just a lot of smoke, so we can just pretty much skip through that. And here we have the rocket right here. It looks to be going vertical when it comes out of that smoke plume, that smoke cloud. But at this point, if we measure it against that little electricity tower in the background, it might already be going a bit slanted here, because we can see if we measure that, if we measured those against each other, they both seem pretty straight, but the rocket here seems like it is already beginning to tip over. This tab gives me a lot better view of the image, but this tab actually lets me see what frame we're on, so we can get a more accurate time of how things are happening. So let's just go through here, and about here, we can see that it is definitely beginning to tip over by about 6 seconds. It is if we again measure it versus the electricity tower back there, we can see that they are now at diverging angles. So it's still a fairly shallow angle at this point compared to the how vertical is. Obviously, rockets have the gravity turn; they start to turn when they get off the pad, but I don't think this is how it's usually supposed to happen. At about 7 seconds here, if we go into this tab, we can see over here a little bright piece of something that comes off. Something that is burning falls off. Now, I'm pretty sure this isn't a solid rocket, that this first stage, because from what the engine setup is, I assume I assume it's a liquid rocket. Because if we look at this again, yeah, those are pretty clearly those look like liquid rockets. You can see there's a lot of plumbing here. Solid rockets don't really have plumbing, so we can probably rule that out. So yeah, let's continue on. As we can see, there's a bright piece of something that flakes off when I forgot to record with my microphone. One of the things I brought forward was we don't know what it is a piece of. It could be a piece of anything. Rocket exhaust burns so hot that it can melt most things. So it could be a piece of metal from whatever they were using to hold down the rocket. Maybe that's why the rocket escaped, because it melted its restraints and escaped containment. But we probably won't ever know that for sure. My thought is that maybe it's a piece of that little flare from around the rocket that we can see here, because that looks like it's pretty in the area of attack, but it could also be part of the engine, as we will see soon. We can see about here it is already putting out smoke, but it is putting out smoke since about here, so we know that that's probably just situation normal, though this is a static fire that turned into a test flight on accident, so nothing's nominal here at all. So let's go over to this tab so we can see the times again. So 7 seconds to at about 7 seconds is when that 6 seconds 27 frames is when you can first see that little piece of metal, first piece of burning whatever come off, and it continues until about, and we can no longer see it by about 7:17, 7:16, 7:18, about that time. The rocket is out of view, but when we come back to it at about 8:04, we can see that it is a lot more tilted than it previously was. If we compare this to this, that is a lot harsher of an angle. And as we continue on, that angle seems to only get harsher and harsher. And about here, we can see that that angle is very, very harsh. And at about this point, at roughly, so we can see it about there. At 14 seconds, it's completely fine. The flame plume is normal, but as we get into 14, we can see that flame plume start to separate, and there's probably an energetic event that's happening here, and we can see that energetic event start to happen at about here, because you can see that flame plume start to separate there, and you can see the bottom of that flame plume tinged with black. So that energetic event probably happened about here or here. Probably here. We can start to see that black smoke at right about here. So my thought is that the energetic event happens either here or here, and then it starts to reveal itself about here, and a bunch of that turns into black smoke, which that's not what you want to see when making a rocket that usually doesn't put out black smoke. We can see that a bit better over here, we can see that separation begin right there, and that turns into that black smoke. And there is a slight amount of time where it is not putting out more black smoke. That is from about 14 seconds, 24 frames, to about 15 seconds, 10 frames, 11 frames. And we can see more black smoke here. Possibly remnants of the first energetic events, maybe a indication of a second energetic event. And as we can see, that angle that we had here is now starting to get a lot worse. As you can see, that is most likely a thrust imbalance, probably associated with the energetic event we had, that the rocket had. And yeah, we can see here plume of smoke that happened, and that's a trailing, so probably associated with the first energetic event. Could be a second energetic event, we don't know. And that is just absolutely turned into the airstream, which cannot be good for it. And about here, we get a lot of black smoke, possibly indicating the start of a second energetic event. And here, we just get flames, and we just get smoke and smoke and smoke, as can be seen here better in this view. And as that smoke goes on, we can see the flame plume from the rocket get a lot smaller, dies out at about, we can start to see it die out at around 21, 22, and it dies out officially at about, let me just get there. All right, so you can see it getting smaller and smaller, and then it's just consumed by the black smoke, and it seems to disappear about there. So that is 23 seconds, 25 frames. So that's probably when the engine stopped firing, excuse me, and then the rocket probably starts falling only a few frames later. As you can see there, it is just still suspended, and then it starts to move downwards. It is still moving up slightly there, but we can see at about here, we can see that separation from that smoke plume there. So it starts falling officially at about 24 seconds, 18 frames. And we can continue here, and it keeps falling. And one interesting thing I noticed, we can see a little bit of flame there, and a bunch of smoke billowing out. So that is probably a fire in the engine bay. And that smoke is about, I estimated, a quarter of the rocket. So that is most likely a fire in the engine bay, is what I think. Because we have that fire there that is almost certainly not a rocket firing, because if it was firing, it'd probably be a little longer than that, I'd have to assume. So that is probably just a regular fire, not a rocket engine firing, which is associated with that black smoke there. And as we go further, we can see that that smoke is coming from that fire, and that fire is that smoke extends upwards about to about like half of the rocket by this point, and that fire has consumed. We can see that fire is about the orange part of the fire is about up to that third of a rocket, and that consumes nearly 3/4. That smoke gets up to nearly 3/4 of the rocket before it stops, and that is for a long time, because we go from we get that black smoke coming off the rocket starting about here at 2617, and it's still going. We still get a ton of smoke by 3307. So we go from 26 seconds, 17 frames to 33 seconds, 10 frames, 8 frames. And so that is a lot of time. That's 6 seconds at the very least that is on fire completely. And it seems to be losing a lot of smoke around it. The smoke seems to be dissipating at about there, and that is, if we zoom in here, we can see that that is almost definitely not a engine firing. That is almost certainly a fire. And the smoke is about 1/3 of the rocket here, and that fire is probably closer to 1/8 at this point. And we can move forwards a bit, and that fire is still burning. So yeah, the smoke slowly just goes away as it starts to fall faster and faster. But that we can still see that fire is burning in the engine bay as it falls. So, and then we can still see it burning as it goes further and further down, and that fire in the engine bay appears to still be burning even when we lose sight of it. And here, if we bring it up to a larger size, we can see that that whole half of the rocket just appears to be completely burnt, just absolutely charred. So that is consistent with probably a fire, is again my guess. And as we lose sight of it, it is still burning. And a few seconds later, we get that explosion. And so we can see that that still had a ton of fuel on it. So it is, again, most likely the first stage. Because you can't get an explosion this large without still having a decent amount of fuel on you. And that, I don't know how fast that was moving towards the ground. We can probably actually estimate if we have the height of the rocket, because we lose sight of it about... let me get back to where we lose sight of it, because each frame, that's a 24th of a second. So we actually can't tell. We probably can't tell how fast it's moving because how shaky this camera is. But obviously they couldn't. Their first interest was probably not getting like steady footage of it, because you don't see a rocket falling and go, oh, I've got to get absolutely completely steady footage of this just in case someone wants to analyze this. You know, nobody does that. They just go, oh shoot, a falling rocket. And one of my first observations was actually you can probably tell that they're cursing about here.
真高的。
歪了，卡子了，卡子了，卡子了，卡子了。
Because that's a repeated phrase. I assume it's along the lines of uh-oh, or shoot, shoot, shoot. Because you don't usually say yippee, yippee, yippee when a rocket starts to go down, you know? So I assume that this camera person is going, they're probably making a few expletives there. Some things breach the bounds of language, so to say. Now that we've finished going over that video, let's talk about what I think happened here. Obviously, it escaped. The rocket escaped. We know that for sure. We don't know how it escaped, which is probably the big thing that will be looked at. One of my hypotheses, obviously, is it might have burned its way out of its restraints. Another possibility is that it could have just been too powerful for its restraints and it just broke free. But obviously, we're not going to know that, because they're probably not going to say, hey, we accidentally made our rocket too powerful. There's probably going to be, yeah, there was an incident where the rocket got free, and we're not telling you anything about it. Because, yeah, they don't... yeah, we're probably not going to get that much information on that side, but we can probably get. So what I assume here is we can see that it is very diagonal at this point, and only a few and only a tiny bit later we can see that energetic event. What I think happened that led to the rocket falling was a series of energetic events and a fire in the engine bay. I don't know if the fire in the engine bay caused the energetic events or the energetic events caused the fire in the engine bay. It could be either, because that's almost certainly an engine exploding, or probably multiple engines exploding if I had to guess, because we can see the flame plume get a lot smaller as we go on, and so that's probably just one of the engines exploding, sending shards of itself into the other engines, and those engines also failing, maybe not as explosively as one or multiple of the engines did, but that is almost certainly all of the engine, some or all of the engines failing, and that leads to a just total loss in thrust. Maybe at this point there are still a number of engines burning, still firing rather, not burning, because they are absolutely burning here. But maybe there is one or two engines still firing at this point, but they are not producing enough thrust to keep the rocket going upwards. I think at this point we may just be seeing a fire in the engine bay completely, because it looks like it is no longer producing enough thrust to keep it going upwards, and we can confirm that pretty well by it's just stopped after a soon point. After a point fairly soon, it's probably already got a decent enough amount of momentum. So maybe just all of this right here is just fire in the engine bay and nothing else, and no engines firing. Maybe, I don't know. And anyway, yeah, we can see this go up and up and up. And obviously, we obviously have a fire in the engine bay at this point. And so, what happened to this rocket was most likely engine failure leading to a fire in the engine bay and just a total loss of thrust. But there are some other factors we don't completely know yet, like was the tilt of the rocket that caused this energetic event that led to the loss of the rocket and obviously, again, as I stated earlier, this is a static fire that turned into a test flight on accident, and I'm pretty sure they did not want it to turn into a test flight. So again, nothing here is nominal. We cannot say for certain whether it was supposed to turn like this. I'm going to say it probably wasn't, because my guess is that it might have turned a bit too far into the airstream, and that caused too much stress on the piping, which caused something somewhere to just rupture, and leading to a loss in thrust and loss of the vehicle. And we probably can't say much more than that, but it is very. We can still take lessons from it. Like, one, make sure your rocket is completely strapped down before doing a static fire, or two, I don't know what two is. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's all. I'm gonna go edit this now. Bye.